jail?
Well, a lot of people in the civil rights movement went to jail.
Who? They're all my favorite.
Well, I know, but a lot of these people, to stand up for what was right, had to go to jail. That's what good trouble is. Remember we talked about John Lewis?
Who else went to jail?
This is going to be hard to hear.
Okay.
Dr. Martin Luther King.
Who else went to jail?
Well, Rosa Parks was arrested.
But she was my favorite.
It's your first time here, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for stopping by. For my returning subscribers, I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for supporting my content. For all those who send the comments, I love you and I appreciate for your love and support. Thank you so much for supporting my content. This video is a bit longer and it's an educational video. I must mention collection of TikTok videos, so it's a very beneficial video. This being Black History Month, it's also important that we look into history. Like the whole of February, I don't see myself bringing something else apart from history and things that we have to like learn from the Black history. So this video is showing the benefits of Black white parents teaching their children Black history, and I love the approach that this lady is using to teach this child Black history. You can see how she's trying to teach some values to her child pertaining the history, the Black history. So this video also contains some of white people who fought for rights of Black people. So there's a lot to learn here. I'll be interrupting whenever it's necessary, but let you enjoy the rest of the video. It's a long video, I must mention again, but let's do this.
Do you remember when we talked about John Lewis?
Oh yeah, he went to jail too.
And he talked about good.
Why did they all have to go to jail?
They had to go to jail to make changes so that things could get better. Remember what John Lewis talked about?
Good trouble?
Good trouble. It's when you break the rules, but it's for the right reason.
Break the rules for good reason. John Lewis is the best, right?
John Lewis, he was awesome, yeah.
Hey, Black Educator here. And I just want us to keep in mind, when we have the discourse about revisionist history and not being able to teach children the fullness, like the full truth about what happened during the transatlantic slave trade, it is not just because white people feel guilty and they don't want to feel guilty about it. That is not what's going on. What's going on is this country is hungry for a generation of people who believe in American ideals again. And they're trying to immobilize our children by not giving them the context and the jargon in order to actually know what's going on. If you don't really understand slavery, if you're not really taught about slavery, then you won't be taught about sharecropping. If you're not really taught about sharecropping, then you won't have to be taught about the prison industrial complex. It's not just that they're taking history. It's not just that they're making history nicer. They are literally taking away the tools that we need in order to revolutionize. That is what's going on. That is why it is so important, even if you are not an educator, even if you are not a parent, even if you are not an older sibling, to take children under your wing in your communities. Educate children. We as educators can do but so much, right? We need communities of folks. We need villages telling these children the truth so they are not growing up with this specific mindset about what America is and what America is supposed to be, so that their struggles are not silenced, so that they don't think they're the first generation to go through police brutality. They're the first generation to go through mass incarceration. They're the first generation to go through gerrymandering. They are not. And if they're not given the resources, if they're not given the history, if they're not given the context, they will have no agency to fight. And our generation and all of the generations before us have done great work to finally get us to wake up, but they're trying to put us to sleep again. Take a child under your wing, educate them about the country, give them some agency.
Name 5 white people in American history who fought against racism and slavery. And I want y'all to think about that, because have there been 5 people? Yes, way more than 5. Thousands. And I would ask you as a follow-up question, why can't you name them then? Because if we are to live in a society that is supposed to be anti-racist, meaning something that we create that benefits all people, not someone more than others, then we should know about people who've been fighting for years and years and years. We should know about Reverend Bruce Clunder, who was a white guy who was protesting school segregation in Ohio, and Ohio is considered the North. He laid his body down in front of a bulldozer in the 1960s to protest school segregation and died. We should probably know about Ann McCarty Braden, who organized with Rosa Parks, and she helped organize white Southerners to join the civil rights movement. And to go against redlining, which was systemic ghettoization, she bought a house in her name for a black couple who could not buy a home in the neighborhood they wanted to go to. It's a lot of people. Reverend James Reeb, who marched with Dr. King. We don't often talk about John Brown, is probably the most infamous one. But even beyond him, there are so many other folks, even during the period of enslavement. What that means is we can never say they were a product of their time. Not necessarily. They were a product of peer pressure. Think about it that way.
E is for education, for expanding the mind. Like Ruby Bridges, Linda Brown, the Little Rock Nine. The first black children in all white schools. They opened the doors and challenged the rules. I think it's just telling the truth here. I think it's just history. You need to know what happened. You can't be told lies of perfection that never existed. If you're told everything is perfect from the beginning and it's not, then you can't change anything. I think if I learn about those things, I can make other things better. I don't think it's going to make me feel bad about myself. I think it's going to make me feel I can change things that aren't right.
This video is for white academics. Black History Month is just a couple days away. It's turned into this like pseudo performative, who can prove they're more anti-racist than the next person for white people. So let's set a few things straight. If you are only focused on doing anti-racist work this month, you're not anti-racist. Let me be even clearer. Academia is racist. Black and brown students are leaving academia at every career stage because you are not anti-racist, because you are not doing your job. Part of that job is actually to be anti-racist. So what are some things that white academics can do this month and then continue throughout the rest of the year to be less racist? Number one, acknowledge that as a white academic, you benefit from a system of oppression, whether you like it or not. Number two, stop being afraid of the word racist and be more afraid about your own racism. Number three, do not tokenize black people around you to do the anti-racist work for you. It is not the responsibility to educate you. Across the board, white academics need to stop adding more to the plates of black and brown students and faculty and colleagues. This doesn't mean that you shouldn't have them come in and speak on topics of racism, as long as you are also valuing them outside of their own personal racial trauma that you're asking them essentially to present on. And please pay them for their time. Last thing that you can do is to do a self-check. Are you reading and promoting black scholars and their research in your area? Are you not only recruiting black students and professors to your department, but making the necessary changes so that it's safe for them to stay there? Are you asking black scholars who you work with or who are in your area to do more than is necessary for their job? AKA, in what ways are you inevitably adding to the tax that they pay just for being a person of color or a black person in academia? How are you considering race in your research, and where did you get that notion from? Who are you citing? Why are you making those decisions? Are you making them for the right reasons? Are you making all of the decisions that you need to be? How are you addressing racial trauma in your classroom? Are you acting like everything is normal in the days following another murder of a black American by police? Now, this TikTok is not an exhaustive list, but is certainly somewhere to start. Listen to Black voices this month and all year round. Pay Black people for their labor in these spaces. And for the love of God, please do more than randomly post a quote in your Instagram stories and think that you're done.
Like, he sent me that. Yeah. No, I walked over here and you're about to send me that. He said he has no shame.
It is 2024, the year of our Lord, and it is Black History Month. Usually I stay out of white people's business, but this one we have to talk about this. Parents, especially white parents, you have a responsibility to teach your children the history of racism, of enslavement in this country. Now, you can say that you don't believe in that or that is over, but this is going to cause some issues for your children. Here is this child now on the internet, and you know when something comes on the internet, it stays forever. This is going to follow your child forever, for the rest of their lives. Their college application, their job application. You know the internet. Once a thing is here, it's here forever to stay. So white parent, you have a responsibility to your children. Let's say you don't care about black people, but you have a responsibility to your children. And we will talk more about the history of blackface in this country, especially for my African folks, because some of us act like we don't know what is going on in this country.
Today in my class for 3 to 5-year-olds, we did self-portraits inspired by the great feminist teacher, author, and cultural critic Bell Hooks. The writings of Bell Hooks have been a huge influence on me. I love how she wrote critically about subjects you don't hear about a lot in academia, like love. And she wrote about children a lot, and she wrote about children in a way that let you know that she respected children as people. She really respected the autonomy of children, which is something that's surprisingly hard to find. And she wrote books for adults, but she also had a number of children's books. So I like this one, Skin Again. It's really beautifully illustrated, and what I like about the illustrations for little kids is that it has a lot of skin tones, but it presents them as flat colors. So it's easy to identify all these different skin tones. So the first thing we did was we mixed each student's skin tone. And if you've ever worked with very little kids, you'll know that the main thing they want to do if you give them paints on a plate like this, they want to mix them all into one hideous shade. So I told them this is the one time we're just gonna do that. So I let all the students do that. They all end up with one shade that is not really any of their individual skin colors. And then I come around with different colors of paint, yellow, brown, even purple. And they just keep mixing this globby mess until they come up with something that they feel like is the right skin tone for them. Now, of course, in practice, for this age, is that skin tone ever actually accurate to them? No, it's definitely not. But it's somewhere in the family. Then I gave them a large sheet of watercolor paper that had a silhouette on it. And I had them use the paint they just mixed to create their silhouette. And once they had the silhouette, we let it dry for a minute. And while it dried, I gave them some eyes and mouths that I had pre-cut out. And once the tempera was completely dry, or at least mostly dry, we glued on the eyes and mouths. They painted on their shirts and their hair colors. This student insisted that her mouth was a mustache, and I kind of love that for her. It was giving like Anna Mendieta beard transplant vibes. I think we ended up with a really nice little range of colors.
I'm not saying that white people cannot teach like black history. I don't believe that, right? Of course they haven't gone through whatever it is we've gone, but I do not feel that there is some type of just like you discriminate with, oh, you can't teach that, because that's like saying I can't teach my children about George Washington, right?
I almost think that black people, the reason why they say that, because they think if a white person teach black history, then they should take blame or take ownership for what happened.
My people did.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I think that's part of the beef, that white people, they may teach the history, but the black people will be like, you're not teaching it correctly because you're not taking the fault for any of this.
In honor of Black History Month, we need to talk about how we do not teach our children real history in schools. Oftentimes, we teach children that white people invented certain things that black people were actually the inventors of. In fact, this is the list of standards that schools need to teach about inventors, none of whom are black. Even though during this time, black people were inventing just as important of contributions towards American society. For example, when I was in school, I, as well as many of you, were probably taught that Thomas Edison invented the light bulb. Thomas Edison did not invent the light bulb. First of all, there were many people before Thomas Edison who created light bulbs, tried to get patents on them, and didn't get their patents. Thomas Edison got the first patent because he had a filament that actually worked. But even then, Thomas Edison's filament did not last very long, it was not practical, and it was not affordable. Lewis Latimer was the black scientist who worked with and for Thomas Edison, who created the carbon filament that lasted much longer than Thomas Edison's filament. It was practical and it was affordable. So while the light bulbs of today use tungsten, which is actually longer lasting than carbon, Lewis Latimer's carbon filament is always going to be remembered as making light bulbs affordable and practical and long lasting for public use and at home. Lewis Latimer also drew up the blueprints for the telephone that Alexander Graham Bell, we were all taught, invented. He did not invent the telephone. Lewis Latimer also invented that. In 1890, Latimer also supervised the installation of public electric lights in New York City, Montreal, London, and Philadelphia. He also later became a part of Thomas Edison's elite research team and developed many inventions that got us to where we are today, including the toilets in railroad cars and the forerunner for air conditioning. Now, this isn't to say that Thomas Edison wasn't a huge contributor to American history when it comes to inventions and electricity, because he definitely was, but it is to say that we do not give credit where credit is due often when we teach our children American history. There are many times when I was taught things like Thomas Edison invented the light bulb, which he did not. Alexander Graham Bell invented the telephone, which he did not. The Native Americans and the Pilgrims came together for a beautiful Thanksgiving dinner because they loved each other in peace and harmony, and that's why we have Thanksgiving. False. All of these things are false. And we need to stop teaching our children false, whitewashed history that makes white people look so great and like white people did everything. They invented everything. They built society themselves. Black people basically did nothing, because the only times we are taught as children about Black history is, number one, slavery. Number two, the Harlem Renaissance. I got like one lesson on that. And number three, civil rights with Martin Luther King Jr., and that's really it. And we don't even teach the full story of civil rights. We don't teach the full story of Rosa Parks, of Malcolm X, and Martin Luther King Jr., and how they were all three in on it together. Like, they were working together to do these things that they did.
European scholars performed all sorts of intellectual acrobatics to obscure the truth about African advancement. Some even suggested that African accomplishments were the results of visitors from outer space. Any wild idea was more acceptable than to admit that Africans had the intellect and ingenuity to develop and control well-ordered empires. The purpose of all these erroneous theories was simply to justify slavery and attitudes of racial superiority. White supremacists built their bridges, constructed of lies to fill the gap between real African sophistication and false African inferiority. Because of this, a devastatingly unknowable amount of history is lost forever. Pair that with half-hearted archaeology and the Western tendency to ignore the oral histories of indigenous Africans, and you see how difficult it is to be recovered. And history was more than lost, it was banished. As the sun set on the British Empire in the mid-20th century, officials destroyed, removed, and renamed records of imperialist crimes all over the world. "What's burnt won't be missed," cried a British officer as he frantically sifted piles of papers in what was called Operation Legacy, a systematic effort to shape the legacy of the empire post-colonization.
From what you can see, there's a great benefit in teaching your child Black history and the real history, the way it is, the good, the bad, the ugly, everything. If there was something good about it, just say it. If it's right, yeah. So yeah, that's what I would say on this video. And one thing I know, the truth will set us free. So it's the truth that sets people free, than hiding the truth from them, and then when they discover that there were hidden truth about what they were taught, it becomes even more painful. So that was it about this video. Hope it was helpful. Don't forget to leave your thoughts in the comment section, subscribe to the channel, comment kindly. I want to hear your thoughts. Would you want to see more of history, or should we move on and leave it? What do you think? Yeah, let me know guys. I'm here for you. That was it about this video. Don't forget to leave your thoughts kindly.